At 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm meteorologist Rod Hill, joined by meteorologist Chris McGinness. And of course, we're here to show you the very latest model information and forecast data that we look at to put together the forecast for the potential of anything from snow to freezing rain to maybe some sleet or even some rain mixing in at times, with the winter storm watch starting tomorrow night into Friday morning. And we're going to show you the map from the Weather Service. The purple areas technically, in fact, are the winter storm watch issued from the Weather Service. Notice this is all of Western Oregon, for the most part, away from the coast. The coast is expected to get out of this with rain more than not. Maybe some icing, but a lot of rain. The white area over Portland, technically from the Weather Service, that's a winter weather advisory, but in my assumption, we're basically looking at the similar forecast. So I think it's easiest if we just all consider ourselves under a winter storm watch, starting first thing tomorrow morning and then going into Friday morning. Now, with that said, so Thursday a.m. the storm begins. It wraps up by Friday noon in terms of moisture, if you will. We're looking at the best chance of snow is what we'll see first off tomorrow morning. And then especially as we go into Thursday night, the icy mix would be some showery weather that could produce periods of significant freezing rain, enough to make roads icy. So right now, obviously prepare for winter travel. Think about if you have kids in school. Could there be some school closures tomorrow morning? Yes. Could there be school closures Friday morning? Yes. Here's a look at some more of our timeline information. So tomorrow morning the snow begins, and this could be several hours of snow up through about the noon hour, and that could accumulate anything from just some passing flurries to as much as 3 inches. And you could make the argument that 3 inches of snow, or at least 1 to 2 to 3 inches, could be fairly widespread across the Willamette Valley and up into southwest Washington. We go showery eventually in the afternoon. Thursday night, it's showers that change into what we could be seeing more freezing rain on the radar and in the observations at that time. That goes into Friday morning and the storm threat itself over before the noon hour. So I'm going to show you the Futurecast model. This is the one we show you on TV most often, and then we're going to hand it over to Chris, and he's going to get into the particulars of what the wind is doing and the temperatures and the freezing rain and the snow areas. So here's Thursday morning at 5:15. I will share with you, this has been very consistent. This model has not changed much since yesterday when I showed it to you. Here's in the 5 o'clock hour in blue, some light snow, Eugene working up towards Salem, some rain along the south and central coast. Here's 8 o'clock hour, Salem in the middle of the rain. Again, some mixing, but also some rain along the coast. And there's Portland at 8 o'clock hour. The snow starting to move up into the area. And we have snow at 9, we have snow at 10. Here's snow at 11:15. This snow band continuing to move up to the north into Longview and Astoria. I mentioned rain along the coast, but Astoria, the north coast, has a far better chance of winter weather than, say, Lincoln County does. And then as we go into the afternoon, there's that main band up north of Portland anyway, but not much. This will be a showery pattern, and I think there'll be more showers showing up in the afternoon than what this actually indicates. This is 223, but it does show the chance of some rain, of temperatures getting above freezing during the afternoon Thursday, especially if we get a lull in the precipitation action. Here's overnight Friday. Now we're going to start focusing on these salmon pink tones. That's the potential of freezing rains. That's basically rain is coming down. It's all rain until it strikes a freezing surface, which could be the street, could be your mailbox, could be a fence line, could be tree branches, could be power lines, of course. So notice how this expands. This is 12:30. I'm going to play this into 3 o'clock. See how that area expands? This is to me, in terms of travel, this is the biggest concern. Could we get enough widespread freezing rain Thursday overnight and Friday morning that it becomes very difficult very quickly to do any driving around? Now, also, I want you to notice one more thing with me. This is coming up on 3:30. Notice how all of a sudden we've got snow here in Portland. Remember, Portland is impacted by cold east winds coming out of the gorge. Watch the snow area in Portland from the middle of the night into Friday morning expand. See that? Almost everything that was freezing rain changes over to snow, and then eventually that kicks out, and then this wave of moisture is gone, really. It's up in the mountains by noon, and then our storm is completely over. So that's the overall movie, and now the man with the heavy lifting, I turn it over to Chris McGinness.
So there still are some questions in terms of like that 1 to 3 that you showed on. Like, does that all fall on Thursday, or is that a combination of Thursday and why is my microphone not on? That is interesting. So, maybe I should have turned it on to begin with. I got the mic check there. Sorry for that. But let me go back to that real quick, which was the question about that 1 to 3 on Thursday. Is it all Thursday? Is some of that Thursday night and Friday? How much comes in with that initial band? So let's go ahead and walk you through. First off, a couple of things. Let me get past this. Obviously, that's the moisture that's approaching. and developing. We want to start off with the cold. We have warmed above freezing. We may not or may get above freezing tomorrow, but the point is right now it's 33 at PDX. And as we were talking about yesterday, and maybe we didn't hit this hard enough, or maybe got a little colder than we expected, but east side of the Cascades, brutally cold this morning. So
yeah.
The reservoir of cold is there, so to speak, and the freezer door through the gorge is going to be open as that wind picks up. So let's take a quick look at that, because that's one of the things that will be undercutting this moisture as it comes in on top of us is the east wind. And our modeling is suggesting winds really starting to get gusty through the gorge. I mean, they're already pretty gusty, but that wind should increase across the region as we go through the day today. What you're looking at are wind gusts. This is a forecast, so 38's a bit on the high side for Portland, I think. But the point is, especially east side of town, the airport's in northeast Portland. You get out towards I-205, you're really going to feel that east wind. So the wind chills are going to be driving down, and that will continue to reinforce the cold air at the surface. Check Salem and Corvallis. Down there, the wind not nearly as strong, so they're going to be somewhat limited with how long that cold air stays in place, and that might be a location that is able to get above freezing at some point during the day tomorrow. Meanwhile, in the northern Willamette Valley, and specifically in the Portland metro area, East County, that east wind is just firing, right? It's going into the day on Friday, and it doesn't really subside until Friday afternoon, and luckily that's when the storm system finally rolls out of here. So let's look at one of the concerns being ice. And Rod, maybe one of the reasons why the central Willamette Valley is under that winter storm watch as opposed to the winter weather advisory is for maybe the higher potential of significant icing. And I wanted to show you this. This is the European model. It does show at least the potential for some icing getting into the Portland-Vancouver metro area. It doesn't look like much, and in fact, all those zeros that you see from like Balm Grove, Hillsborough, Portland, out to Troutdale, suggesting minimal ice accumulation. I think that's a bit underdone, or at least optimistic that there's likely going to be at least some glaze. But the European model is certainly focusing on Yamhill County, Western Marion County, and Polk County for areas that could be significantly impacted by ice. And that does coincide with the area that the Weather Service currently has a winter storm watch. So the watch, one of those things, they could easily slide to a warning indicating that the severity of the winter weather event might be more significant. I want to show you one different run of that. This is the graph model. It backs off a little bit on the intensity of the ice in the central Willamette Valley, but it does hit the coast range hard, and that's why I wanted to show you this, because this is an area that could also see some significant ice accumulation in some of the coastal valleys. Highway 6, Highway 26, even Highway 30 may be subject to some possible ice. So real quick, here's a quick look at the European model to the timeline with the snow coming in, and we'll stop it at 10 o'clock in the morning. I've got the wind arrows on there, obviously showing the east wind still streaming out of the gorge, and the rain-snow mixed line working its way into Lynn and Marion counties there, right? So Salem's kind of teetering with maybe a transition from snow to sleet to eventually freezing rain. Watch the northern periphery, that band. It just kind of sort of sits north of the Portland metro area, and then it pivots overnight, Thursday night into Friday. And I'm wondering now if we're going to see that transition from maybe a brief transition to sleet and freezing rain in the metro area before we see a changeover back to snow. And Rod, you showed that on the graph model, so let's show you what some of the modeling is showing us in terms of snowfall. That's kind of on par with the European model, suggesting, again, a mainly snow Portland and points north. And that fits into our 1 to 3, but the question is, when do we get that 1 to 3? Do we get the 1 to 3 in that first band that comes through? Probably not all in that first band.
Right.
It's probably a combination of we get some up front, we see a little bit of a mix, how much depends on how far north or south you are, and then additional snowfall possible on top of that if there is in fact a transition back to snow overnight Thursday into Friday morning.
I know some of the earlier models I looked at on our sunrise show this morning showed a half of an inch to an inch to maybe 2 tomorrow. And then they generally added at least another inch on top of that Thursday overnight and Friday morning, to your point.
Yeah, and total liquid equivalent. That's if you took all the rain or all the snow, all the ice, whatever we get in terms of that melted it down. It's not a lot, right? It's on the order of about 0.2 of an inch-ish, quarter of an inch on the high end. But if that were to all fall in the form of snow, we'd be looking at 3-4 inches of snow. We don't think it's necessarily going to be all snow in Portland. We think it's probably going to be some combination of sleet and freezing rain, but
Hey, Byron, Director Byron, if you can go back to Max 1 and bring up for our viewers what's behind us on the big monitor right now. This is a wider look at the Futurecast model that we showed you earlier. And as we broaden it out, this is 5:30 in the morning. I just wanted to point out there's some warming down around Medford and certainly North Bend, Coos Bay up into Florence, where this is showing primarily rain. And then if I just play this through the day, you can see that warm pocket near Eugene and southward continues to be there. So if you are traveling around our region as you get south of Eugene, there is reason to hope that you'll be out potentially of the snow zone and get at least into more of a mix of rain. You can see the blue patches. These are little snow bands, even the 8:30 Thursday evening, working across central and eastern Oregon out across 84 and up into the blues as well. And this does show more rain than not all the way up through Lincoln County. That's Lincoln City and Newport, and after a snowy first half of the day, perhaps some warming up in Astoria as well. Your thoughts, Chris? I see you're staring at this.
Yeah, I'm looking
intently.
at this map, and one of the things that, and we've talked about this behind the scenes a little bit, that was interesting is the low.
Which is showing up, the enclosed circle, which goes from about Medford to over the P where we have the broad text of Portland.
The white circle
that
there.
Enclosed circle on the isobars, that's the low.
So what's interesting about this is the track, right? It's south of Portland. So that's a favorable track to keep Portland sucking in the cold air out of the gorge, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other thing is the storm system gets close and then it just kind of weakens.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder that wraparound moisture, again, that's the second part to this, is the overnight Thursday night into Friday phase. If that is able to, gather enough moisture, wrap it around, and then just kind of fall apart, that would be kind of an ideal situation to see accumulating snow again Thursday night into Friday morning versus sleet and freezing rain. So we still have questions, by the way.
Hey, Jay, come in here and just kind of zoom in where my fingers. So again, this is the low, this enclosed isobar pressure right there. There's the low. And if you follow my finger, there's cold air that's coming down well from Canada. This is a cold Arctic air that's coming down. So let's say if you follow my finger, here's the dividing line, what turns out to be a front that kind of stalls out between the coldest air and the warmest air. And it comes into southern Oregon. This is Thursday evening. And then it probably kind of curls up to the north. And some of the modeling is showing the actual line of coldest air gets stuck over the Columbia River. So to Chris's point, there's a possibility that we stay colder longer than what the models are showing, and that would lead toward less ice in Portland and more just all-out snow because the depth of the cold base would never really erode. So the only variable to me that I'm really overly confident on is the fact that the models have never wavered. They say we get at most a total moisture amount to deal with of 0.2 to 1/4 of an inch from tomorrow morning through Friday noon. Whatever that turns out to be, that's the bucket that can be freezing rain or sleet or snow or rain all total. So 1/4 of an inch, if it's all snow, all of a sudden you quickly think, wow, it
could be 4 inches of snow.
You could get 4 inches of snow easily out of that. And the other thing that's really consistent to me is that everything ends the storm by Friday noon. But who gets freezing rain or snow, when that happens, how much ice versus snow? Well, that's all. I'm not smart enough to totally figure that out. Those things could really start to go either way. And I still think it could go either way what the temperatures are. I mean, if the modeling is correct and we don't have much total moisture Thursday afternoon, and I think the new MBM that came out gives Portland a high of 36 tomorrow, and then that
washes away anything that we got on the roads.
Well, then we're cloudy, and all of a sudden you can make the case that we don't get below 32 Friday morning, and maybe we're 33. Well, if you have a freezing rain forecast, a big difference between 33 and 32. In fact, to have real icing, you typically have to get almost a degree or two below 32 to really have that glaze up on everything. So there's a lot of things that are right on the edge of being a big mess to maybe it wasn't that bad. Your thoughts?
Hedging. Of course we are. I mean, really, we're still, about 36 hours away from the onset of the heavy, 24 from the snow coming in. And then the questions are, hours 36 to 48 and what happens after that initial band. It seems like that's the other thing that we're pretty sure about. By mid-morning, we're likely to have snow flakes in the air, snow on the ground in Portland. That seems like a pretty high likelihood. So that brings in the possibility and maybe the likelihood of school closings, because you don't want to be stuck in a situation. Now, I don't want to speak for them, but you don't want to be stuck in a situation where, it just kept snowing all day, even if it was light. and it's accumulating, then that's a problem. So
yeah,
that's something that I know local school districts are going to be all on top of. You know, they're going to be watching the conditions. They're going to be watching the radar. What's actually happening? You know, at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. Are we seeing the snow develop in Salem at 5 a.m., which our modeling has been fairly consistent? Is it going to be snowing in Portland by 10 a.m.?
Pretty consistent.
Pretty consistent with that. Now the question is that going to happen? And that's something that's a little bit of a wait and see.
Yeah, you know, our news department obviously talked about this as well. Our school closure is something we're going to be following tomorrow. And I thought, well, keep in mind, here in the Willamette Valley, we haven't had hardly any snow day, if any, so far this year, right? And if you're the superintendent in Salem, if you're watching, by the way, good morning. It's not a good day for 2-hour delays because it's going to be worse at 10 than it is at 8 in the morning, potentially. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just say, we haven't used many snow days, let's play it safe. We don't want to have buses driving in 2 inches of snow later in the day. And then Friday morning, if you wake up and it's freezing rain all over the place, obviously the schools are going to call that easily.
Right.
So lots of things to keep in mind on. Our news department covered the fact that Friday is Valentine's Day. One of our stories was, go out today and get your chocolates and your flowers.
Don't forget, of course, because Monday is also a holiday for a lot of folks, right, with the President's Day.
Maybe you don't want to be out and about, although Friday afternoon looks to be rapidly improving. And you see here's the 7-day forecast. So my numbers, 28 tonight. I think that's at the coldest. Keep in mind, the last couple of nights, it's been perfectly clear. And Portland's gotten down into the mid to upper 20s. Now, the models say that we're definitely clear past midnight tonight. So there will be plenty of time tonight for the temperatures to fall off. Then the clouds thicken up no later than 4 a.m. So it makes sense that we're going to be freezing or colder. And then in the afternoon, getting up to around freezing to slightly above. And then, you know, do we hold at 30 or slightly above Friday morning? And then everything ends by noon Friday, and it makes sense we'll warm up to 40 at that point.
How confident are you in the above freezing tomorrow afternoon? I think is a pretty significant question also that needs to be answered and frankly maybe still be determined because there's a chance we don't. And especially north of the Columbia River, pretty good chance we don't. But
and there are models that show us 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 30, 31, 32.
Which means no
to
melting.
Your point.
Yeah.
So as a forecaster, we all have our little individual rules of the way we were trained and what we do. So I don't think Kristen and I have ever talked about this, but as a forecaster for myself, there are times you want to hit the temperature exactly right. There are other times I don't want to miss it by more than 4, meaning if I think it's not going to be, at the warmest it would be 34, and at the coldest it would be 26, I'll forecast 30. So I put this 35 on the board thinking in my mind it's at least going to be 31, 32, but we would need the precipitation to back off, to Chris's point, to have a chance to get some warming to 33, 34, 35. So we'll see. And then Friday morning, I don't think it's going to be colder than 29 or 30. You can make the case. In fact, some of the modeling is showing we're 32, 33. And then if we're dry by noon Friday, the overall air mass shows that warms up fairly quickly. And I've got 40 on the board, although I will share with you in these east wind deals. As a forecaster, I have gotten an F over the years of trying to warm us up too quick on the backside, so we'll see. This is rain holding off Saturday until the afternoon hours. 100% of the data shows that being rain, and we get up to 40, and then we're overnight lows closer to 40 than freezing, and daytime highs with rain at times back up to about 50 Monday, Tuesday of next week. Cascades, Chris, people were asking about. Remember, we're dealing with about 1/4 of an inch of total moisture.
That gets accentuated
in the mountains
because of the added lift. You can usually add at least 50% to that.
To me, 6 inches. Maybe they get more than that. But I don't think this is a huge snow event
for the
up in the Cascades.
No, not huge
for Thursday, Friday.
Good snow.
But there's some decent moisture coming in the first of the week with snow levels getting back to 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Anything else, sir?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Because we will have more to say tomorrow morning when it's actually happening.
Yeah, our chief meteorologist on the air on NBC, KGW Channel 8 at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And we'll be here starting at 4:30 a.m. on Sunrise tomorrow morning.
Bright and early.
For Chris McGinness, I'm Rod Hill. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.